Have you ever felt that, no matter what you do, something inside you is always in conflict? That the mind won't stop, desire is never satisfied, and peace always seems just out of reach? Jiddu Krishnamurti, one of the greatest thinkers in modern philosophy, dedicated his life to exploring this very deep restlessness of the human mind. In this series, we'll dive into his most powerful ideas, like the understanding of desire, psychological time, true meditation, and a kind of freedom that goes far beyond what you might imagine. Get ready for a journey that will challenge everything you believe about yourself and about life. This isn't ordinary philosophy. It's an invitation to an inner revolution that can transform your entire existence. Krishnamurti and the central idea of the pathless truth. Have you ever felt stuck somewhere in your life? Maybe trapped in patterns, beliefs, fears, or a never-ending search? If so, you're in the right place to explore one of the most radical and liberating ideas the 20th century has ever seen, the vision of Jiddu Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti wasn't an ordinary guru. He didn't come with ready-made answers, systems, philosophies, or religions for you to follow. He was someone who threw out all the formulas and said, "Truth is a pathless land." But what does that really mean? Imagine you're in a dense forest, and someone tells you the way out isn't marked. There's no trail to follow. You can't ask anyone to guide you because no one truly knows the way. The only way out is to walk with full awareness, observing each step, each leaf, each sound. No map, no compass, only your own perception. This is the metaphor behind Krishnamurti's central idea. He believed that any belief system, any religion, philosophy, method, or teacher, even with the best intentions, are actually false paths that take us away from real truth, because they create dependency, mechanical repetition, and external authority. You can never be truly free if you're relying on something or someone else to tell you what truth is. True freedom, according to Krishnamurti, isn't found by following a path. It's found by breaking through the conditioning that traps the mind. These conditionings, preconceived ideas, traditions, dogmas, images of the self, are what create suffering. And when you see all of this clearly, without trying to change it or run from it, something within you transforms. But this isn't easy. Why? Because our mind lives in fear, in desire, in psychological time. Elements that Krishnamurti explained in deep and powerful ways, and that we'll explore together in the next sections. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about fear, the future, fulfillment, and even meditation. Because here, there are no tricks, no shortcuts, only raw reality, seen through attentive eyes and an open mind. Are you ready for this pathless journey? Then come along with me. Fear, the root of suffering and observation without escape. Have you ever stopped to think about where fear really comes from? Not the immediate kind, like hearing a strange sound at night, but that lingering fear that pulses in your chest, that constant anxiety about what might happen tomorrow. In your career, your relationship, your life, Krishnamurti offers us a disturbing insight. Fear is not just a simple, natural reaction. It's actually a product of thought, a creation of the mind that lives in the future, in the possible, in the imaginary. Fear arises because your mind creates images, projects catastrophic scenarios, and clings to them. Think about it. How many times did the worst thing you feared never actually happen? How many of those monsters were just shadows born from your imagination? This isn't just a casual observation. For Krishnamurti, this is the key to freedom. But how do you free yourself from fear when it feels so real and overwhelming? His answer is simple yet revolutionary. Don't run from fear, don't deny it, don't fight it. Observe it. Yes, observe it. Not with the intention of controlling it or changing it, but with full attention and the totality of your awareness. When you observe fear without escaping, without thinking about how to get rid of it, something surprising happens. Fear starts to lose its power. It stops being this dominating force and is revealed for what it really is, just a movement of thought. This kind of observation is like turning on a light in the dark room of fear. You're no longer lost in shadow and imagination. You see fear exactly as it is, a collection of thoughts and images. And here comes the real surprise. When you observe fear in this way, it dissolves. Not because you fought it or tried to conquer it, but because pure, non-judgmental attention doesn't allow fear to grow. Krishnamurti explains that this type of observation is an inner revolution, a break from the old habit of always running or trying to control what we feel. He called this self-observation. But why is it so hard for us to do this? Because our conditioning has taught us to escape suffering, to seek safety in beliefs, religions, therapies, distractions. These are all ways of avoiding the inner gaze. And as long as we avoid looking within, fear strengthens. And this is where Krishnamurti's idea that truth is a pathless land becomes vital. There is no magic formula, no technique, no book or teacher that can do this for you. Freedom from fear only happens when you refuse to follow any external path and choose to face what's happening inside you, here and now, with total clarity. If you've never done this, you might think it's impossible or even dangerous. But Krishnamurti assures us, it's exactly this clarity, this attention, that brings real courage and peace. Fear is not something to be eliminated or suppressed. It's the result of a mental process that can be understood. And once it's seen clearly, it loses its grip. And that changes everything. Because the fear you know isn't real in the absolute sense. It's a shadow of the mind. So the question is, are you willing to look at your fear directly, without running, without denying, without seeking shortcuts? That's a personal decision. But know this, on the other side of that choice lies true freedom. A freedom that depends on nothing external, only on you. In the next section, we'll explore psychological time, the silent enemy that keeps our minds trapped in the future and in suffering. But before we move forward, take a moment to reflect. How have you been dealing with your fears? Do you run from them, try to control them, or have you ever simply observed without reaction? This is the first step in breaking the chains of fear. Psychological time, the illusion that traps the mind. Have you ever noticed how much of our suffering is tied to time? But not clock time, not your schedule or calendar. I'm talking about psychological time, that inner voice constantly saying, one day I'll be happy. When I achieve this, my life will get better. I have to change by tomorrow. Krishnamurti calls this one of the greatest traps of the human mind. Because while we live caught up in this idea of the future, we're never truly present in the now. And the now is all that really exists. But why does psychological time trap us so deeply? Because it's built on constant expectation and dissatisfaction. The mind creates an image of what a perfect life would look like and keeps chasing it, as if happiness is always a distant target, a line on the horizon we never actually reach. This thinking breeds anxiety, unease, and frustration, because the future, by definition, is uncertain. And while we're running toward it, life passes us by. Krishnamurti challenges us to realize that psychological time is a mental illusion. It's not an objective reality, but a thought-made structure that keeps suffering alive. Here's the most powerful insight. Suffering happens when what is real, the present, doesn't match what the mind imagines the future should be. That mismatch is the root of inner conflict. So how do we break free from this trap? Forcing yourself to forget the past or ignore the future won't work. Krishnamurti suggests something deeper. Seeing psychological time for what it is, a movement of thought that generates tension, and, by observing it without resistance, realizing that true life only unfolds in the present moment. This kind of perception isn't passive. It's active, sharp attention that breaks the habit of using the future as a crutch or a promise. When this awareness arises, you begin to experience the freedom of real time. The mind is no longer a slave to anticipation or anxiety, and you become fully alive right here, right now. This idea isn't simple or easy. Our entire culture is built on the pursuit of tomorrow. Study to get a better job, plan for retirement, save up for the dream home. That's all part of chronological time, practical and necessary. But psychological time is something else entirely. It's the endless what if, the when this happens, the constant waiting. Krishnamurti tells us that the end of suffering is only possible when the mind frees itself from this illusory time. And that freedom begins the moment you see the illusion clearly, without denial or escape. The truth is, The mind will never be ready to let go of the future until it fully understands the trap it's in. Ask yourself, how many times has your suffering come from waiting? From anxiety over what should be, but isn't? Just seeing this changes everything. It's not about abandoning responsibility or refusing to plan, but about realizing that emotional suffering is born from a distorted relationship with time, psychological time, not from actual physical time. And when the mind is free from that prison, it becomes clear, calm, and creative. You no longer act out of fear of the future but respond directly to what is here and now. It's a radical shift, a waking up to the present that opens the door to an entirely different way of living. In the next section, we'll dive into desire, that powerful force that fuels our inner conflict, but that, once understood, can dissolve. But before we go there, take a moment to reflect. How often do you catch yourself waiting for a future that never arrives? What would your life look like if you lived more fully in the now, without constant anxiety? That's Krishnamurti's invitation. Be fully present in the now, because that's where life actually happens. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but here, now. Desire, the source of conflict and the end of control. Have you ever stopped to think that desire is one of the most powerful, and at the same time most problematic forces driving your life? Everything you want, dream of, or seek comes from desire. But what Krishnamurti shows us is that desire, when not understood, becomes the root of suffering, inner conflict, and mental imprisonment. Desire isn't just wanting something external, like money, success, or a relationship. It's also wanting to be someone, having an identity, a status, an I that exists because it desires and clings to things, ideas, and images. The problem is that desire is, by nature, a movement of dissatisfaction. When you desire something, you are saying no to what is right now. You are turning away from the present because you want something different, better, other than what you already have. This constant dissatisfaction creates conflict. Desire creates a void that is never filled, because as soon as one desire is satisfied, another one appears. It's a vicious cycle, a trap of the mind. Krishnamurti goes deeper. He says desire is linked to fear. You desire to feel secure, loved, important. And this desire for security is a disguised fear. Fear of losing, of not being enough, of disappearing. But how do you free yourself from desire when it seems so essential to life? After all, desire is what makes us act, create, evolve. Here is the big shift Krishnamurti proposes. Don't try to control, suppress, or satisfy desire. Observe it deeply, without judgment, and understand its true nature. When you observe desire with pure attention, it reveals its fragility, its impermanence. You see that desire is born, grows, and dies, and trying to hold on to it is like trying to hold water in your hands. This observation changes your relationship with desire. Instead of being its slave, you begin to realize it's just a movement of the mind, not the master of your life. This freedom only happens with mindfulness, with the willingness to face what is really happening inside you. The fear behind desire, the anxiety for satisfaction, the emptiness it tries to fill. Krishnamurti says desire disappears only when the mind is so clear and attentive that there's no room to cling to anything. This clarity comes from meditation, but not the meditation you may have heard of, full of techniques and effort. It's a natural meditation, a silent observation of the mind itself. When desire dissolves, you experience a state of deep peace. Not a forced or artificial peace, but a peace born from total recognition of the present moment. It's a radical freedom that transforms everything. Your relationships, your choices, the way you see the world and yourself. But beware, this is not an easy journey. It requires courage to look without running away, to abandon the false securities of desire, and to face the emptiness that may follow. And it's precisely in that emptiness that something new is born. A direct perception, a life without fragmentation, a truth that can't be described, only lived. In the next section, we'll explore exactly this meditation according to Krishnamurti, a path that is no path, a silence that speaks louder than words. But before that, reflect. What role does desire play in your life? Are you its slave, or have you already experienced the attention that frees you? Meditation, according to Krishnamurti, the silence that transforms. When we talk about meditation, it's common to think of techniques, mantras, breathing exercises, or guided imagery. But Krishnamurti breaks away from all of these ideas and presents a radically different concept. Meditation is not a practice to achieve something, nor a technique to control the mind. For him, meditation is simply the art of observing the mind without interference, without judgment, without trying to change anything. It's a natural state that arises when the mind is fully alert, clear, and silent. This silence isn't the absence of sound, but the absence of inner conflict. It's a state in which thought is not fragmented, not split or scattered between the past, the future, and desires. The mind is unified, present, and fully awake. So how do we reach that state? Krishnamurti emphasizes that meditation is not about doing something, but rather about ceasing to do, letting go of the constant struggle against whatever arises in the mind. It's about being with what is without trying to escape, resist, or control it. When you observe your thoughts, feelings, fears, and desires with full awareness and without judgment, a distance is created between you and those inner movements. That distance is the space of freedom. It is within this space that the mind becomes silent, not through force but spontaneously. He says this kind of meditation has no method, because any method is just another attempt by the mind to control, and control is precisely what sustains suffering. This simple and pure observation brings about radical transformation. Thought begins to quiet down on its own, effortlessly. Krishnamurti also points out that this meditation cannot be practiced in isolation or in set periods. It must be continuous, a quality of attention you bring into every moment, even the most difficult ones. Imagine facing problems, conflict, loss, and fear with that clear, silent mind. The automatic reactions of fear, desire, and anxiety would no longer dominate you. And that's where real transformation begins, not by changing external circumstances, but by transforming the one who observes. However, this kind of meditation requires courage and honesty, because when you look at yourself without masks, the truth can be uncomfortable. But only in that raw, unfiltered truth can true freedom arise. There's nothing to achieve beyond that total presence, that direct perception which doesn't rely on the past or future. For Krishnamurti, true meditation is a form of intelligence, not acquired knowledge, but a living wisdom that arises when the mind is still. This wisdom is not an intellectual concept, but a direct experience, something that cannot be put into words. It is the end of inner conflict, the end of suffering, and the beginning of a whole, undivided life. Before we move on to the final section, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever tried simply observing your thoughts and emotions without getting involved with them? What kind of space did that create for you? This is the invitation to live with more freedom and truth. True freedom, living without conditioning. After diving into the mind, psychological time, desire, and meditation, we arrive at the core of Krishnamurti's philosophy. True freedom. Not external freedom, the kind gained through rights, possessions, or social status, but inner freedom. A deep liberation from the conditioning that enslaves the mind. What is this conditioning? It's all the beliefs, dogmas, habits, cultural, social, and family patterns that shape who you think you are. Since childhood, we've been programmed to act, think, and feel in specific ways, to fit into a mold, to meet expectations. Krishnamurti says this programming is the root of conflict and suffering, because when the mind acts from conditioning, it is limited, repetitive, and trapped in the past. But a true revolution begins when you realize you don't have to be defined by that conditioning, that there's a capacity within you to break free and be completely new in each moment. How does that happen? Through the mindfulness developed along the path we've walked, the awareness that observes desire, understands psychological time, and meditates without effort. This awareness creates a space where conditioning loses its grip, where the mind no longer reacts automatically, but instead responds with clarity and freedom. This is the freedom Krishnamurti calls awakening, a state where there is no division between the observer and the observed, between you and the world. In this freedom, you don't act from fear, desire, or memory, but from the intelligence of what is in the present moment. It's a state of creativity, of love, and of peace. a peace that doesn't depend on any external circumstance. Krishnamurti makes it clear, this freedom isn't something you can find outside yourself, nor is it something you can achieve through effort or willpower. It arises from deep self-understanding, from observation without interference, and from surrendering all resistance to what is. It's a freedom that comes naturally when the mind is silent, when inner conflict dissolves. And this freedom has a direct impact on daily life. It transforms your relationships, your choices, your way of being in the world. You begin to live with authenticity, without masks or pretense. You live fully not as a future ideal to be achieved, but as a living, breathing reality. Krishnamurti invites us to let go of all false certainties and surrender to the mystery of the present. Because only in total acceptance of who we are, without judgment, without escape, can true freedom be born. That is the essence of his message, an invitation to an inner revolution that can radically change your existence. So, what will your next step be? Continue living under the conditioning of the past and desire, or awaken to the freedom that has always been within your reach? The choice is yours. But Krishnamurti reminds us, true freedom begins the moment you look at yourself without fear and with complete honesty. Now, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep letting your mind stay trapped in the past, in desire, and in conditioning, or will you begin to observe all of it with courage and honesty, creating space for true freedom? Remember, the deepest revolution happens within you, in the silence of a mind that observes without judgment. This freedom isn't some distant reward. It's a living possibility, available in every moment, just waiting to be embraced. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, reflect on it, practice conscious observation. Transformation begins the moment you choose to look inward with courage. Thank you for being here, for allowing yourself this deep reflection. May you find, on Krishnamurti's path, a freedom that transforms not only your mind, but your entire life. Until next time, keep awakening,